For small, simple projects, Vue provides a nice way to do some routing. And what I mean by that is, of course, every application is going to have several different pages. So you would expect to visit different pages and get different content. However, up until this point, we have this concept of components, but none of them really talk about how to create some sort of navigation so that we can have different pages. And that's what we're going to be tackling today. Now, there is an official Vue router, which what it actually does is everything that a server-side rendering would do. But what we're going to be tackling today is a very simple implementation of how to do routing in a Vue CLI application. So let's jump right to it. I still have the code from our previous episode, but all it is just two components. One of them is hello world, which simply just says hello coders, and the other one is this tasks.vue. And all it has is just 3 list items. Nothing crazy in there. I do have my app.vue, which is what we would call our maybe home page. And this one is just our simple counter that we worked on in the previous episode. But this again would work with any number of components, and of course you can have components inside of here and do all sorts of cool stuff with it. What we're interested on in this episode though is the routing aspect of Vue. So if we look at this main.js file, we haven't really touched up on it just yet, but it's a simple Vue application. It's importing Vue, it's importing app, which is our primary component, and then it does have this production tip equal to false. That's just some boilerplate stuff that Vue CLI installed for us. Don't worry about that. And then we're newing up a new Vue instance, and we are rendering, and then H is what we're going to render, and we're simply rendering app. Obviously this component up here. Now we're going to do that by doing a mount on the ID of app. So where is the ID of app, you may ask? That's inside Vue, and that's right here. So we are basically using that app.vue as our entry point for our entire Vue application. Heading back here, one simple thing that we can do is we can listen for window.location. Let's take a look at our browser here, and I'm going to pull open console. Right here in console, we can say window.location. Now this gives you an array, and it's got a bunch of stuff in there, but what we're really interested in is path name. So .path name, there it is. So this right now is giving us just a slash because we are technically in the home page. If we said home, of course it loads the same page, but now if we run window.location.path name again, now we get this string of /home. So obviously you know all about the reactivity of Vue. So we can actually bind into window.location.pathname, essentially listening for changes to location.pathname and then rendering the appropriate component. So let's take a look at how to do that. So I'm in my main.js app. Right now we are again rendering app. We'll leave that in there for now. But let's go ahead and add a data attribute. Now this is not a component, so it is not a function that returns an object, but it in itself is actually an object. So it's just data object. A little bit different syntax here, so watch out for that. If we look at another data, this is a component. We have a function which returns an object. In our main.js, this data returns an object, not a function that returns an object. The difference there, as a quick side note, is that in this manner, this is a single instance of data shared with everything around it. Where app.vue, if you have several instances of this app component, each will have its own set of data, and they don't share data. So that's important for components because, of course, you wouldn't want the same data in every single component. It kind of kills the purpose of components to begin with. So a little bit different syntax there. Watch out for that. So we can say current route, that's just the name of a variable, window.location.pathname. Same exact thing we did on the browser. So now we're going to have this current route. So what we can do is we can route appropriately based around whatever the route is. And we can do that with a computed property. So we say computed, then we'll have an object, and inside the object we can call this whatever we want. How about we just call it current component, and that's going to be a function, and inside of here we're going to return something. For now, let's just put a string. So we need to know, somehow grab this and somehow turn that into the appropriate route. So what you could do up here is, as a variable, let's say routes, we'll set that equal to an array, And this is where we could do our mapping. So we know that the original page, now it's giving me an error here, so it might not work, but let's see if it works. Window.location.pathname. There we go, it did work. So we know that just a simple slash would be what would represent our home page. So we can say slash, we'll need to map that to, let's say, app. In our case, this is our very first route, so we are mapping that to this app view component right here. So we have our very first route. Obviously, we'll add many of these as we get more pages for our application. So in my current component, how do we translate this? Well, simple enough. We're actually going to use routes, which can be accessed basically as an array with bracket syntax, and we are looking for this. So we could just use the current route because that is bound to window.location.pathname. So let's say this.current route, and that will return basically this. All right, so we have that, but now we're still not rendering it because we're simply still rendering just app. So we're going to need to change this render function. Now the render function is simply a way to tell Vue what it is that it's supposed to render. Now in its current form, this is the new shorthand notation. In its current form, it really doesn't allow you to do what we need to do. So we need to change it to the old syntax where we use a function, and a function will receive h, and h is just the name of that variable that we're giving it. It's just how the Vue community has been calling this. You could literally call it anything you'd want, but we'll follow tradition and just say h. So our render function is going to return. So let's go ahead and execute h, and then we need to pass it in our current component. So if we said this dot current component, now we are passing this current component, whatever comes out of this computer property, to our h render function. All right, let's take a look at this in the browser. Just to make sure, we'll refresh, and sure enough, we're still running. There's no problems there. But now let's go ahead and visit maybe /test, and that doesn't work. So this routing is actually working for us, but we just don't have that route. So if we wanted to add this route, we need to go back here to our routes list and let's add a new route. So we'll say test is going to be our new route, and that's going to have to be /test. Because if we go back here and we take a look at window.location.pathname again, it does have that leading slash. So we need to make sure that our routes have the leading slash. So /test, let's go ahead and map that maybe to this tasks view component. So let's import that here at the top. Import tasks from. We'll have to go into components, and then let's pull open tasks. So we'll use tasks component, and we should be good to go. Let's head back here, and sure enough, we get that rendered. And if we go back to the home page, yep, that's still working. So we are essentially routing. We have two routes, and we are going through the whole thing. Let's add hello world as another route. And let's say /hello is going to be equal to hello world. Now, of course, it is imported up here at the top for me automatically. This is just a PHP Storm feature. So it is finding hello world and importing it for me, but you will have to add this manually. We are missing a comma there. We are good to go. So now we can visit /hello, and we get hello coders. Again, hello coders is coming from this hello world view component. And so we are essentially rendering each of these components now as its own page. So we can actually start to write a very simple application that has some routing. Very simple to do. Again, this is not Vue Router. The official Vue Router does a lot more than this. But to be honest, for a lot of projects, this solution is more than plenty for what you're going to need. Alright, so let's recap this whole routing situation here that we have set up for ourselves. So first of all, we are depending on window.location.pathname. And if you remember, this is going to be everything that is up here. So if we visited /test/test, of course that page doesn't exist, but we can always check what the location path name is. So if we need to grab that route and we want to add that as a route, we can definitely add that as a route. And now /test/test is a route. So it doesn't matter what's up here, as long as it matches what window location path name is, we can route something to it. So just keep that in mind. So then what we're going to do is we're going to assign that to current route. This is just a variable name. You can call this whatever you'd like. It's just a variable. It's just a piece of data inside our Vue instance. So we are using this data alongside with this routes object that we have up here to map from addresses into components. So every single component that we have gets matched up to an address. So /hello matches to this component. /test maps to the tasks component. So each one has an assignment. And then all we're doing with a computer property is we are basically going into our routes, and then we are basically just returning the component name for each of these routes. So we're passing in this and basically just translating it to app. Now another thing that we can do here as a small side note is something like a 404. So if we don't find a route, let's just type some gibberish here. We just get this blank page. But you may want to show somebody a not found page or something like that. So why don't we change one of these components? Tell you what, let's add a new component. Let's use one of the Vue component PHP templates here, and we'll just call it not found. And yes, all right. So in here, we'll just have a div with an h1 that says not found. Navigate back, and maybe we can make that a link. How about that? So href. We're just going to navigate back and navigate back. All right, so we have this component not found. So what we can do here is let's go ahead and import that component up here. So import not found from components not found .vue. It looks like I used double quote here. Let's just keep it the same. Let's go to single quotes there. All right, no big deal there. I just like the single quotes better. All right, so now that we have this not found, now up here, if it's not able to find this route, we can give it an alternative. And we're going to say pipe, and if you don't know what this means, this just simply means or. So we're going to give you this, or if this doesn't exist, let's go ahead and pull open not found instead. And if we go back here, now we have this not found, navigate back, and we can navigate back for our users. So again, let's go to an address that doesn't exist. It says, nope, not found, navigate back. So that's a nice fallback for us to grab any routes that the user tries to navigate to that we don't have in our routes list. All right, so let's keep going with the review. So then for our render function, we had to turn this into an old style function, and we're going to accept h. And h is just a function that we're going to execute. And when we do, we're going to pass in whatever the result is of this route. So essentially, we're going to send in either app or task or hello world, or in the case that doesn't find anything, the not found component. So just like that, we were able to route in our application and even catch any routes that we don't have registered. Pretty cool stuff. Go ahead and implement some pages in your project. Get familiar with this routing process. And like I mentioned before, for a lot of projects, this is more than plenty. But we will explore the Vue router package because it's a very important aspect to know if you're going to be writing any single page applications. And if you're not familiar with single page applications, we're going to learn all about them when we take a look at Vue router. So for now, that's it for this episode. When you're ready, let's move on to the next thing.